Only watch the town go by. All of these things I said to you. Fuck you.
What's going on, you guys? Hope you're doing good. Hope everything is going well for you. So today I was wanted to kind of answer to the best of my ability the question asking, what kind of margin of error do you have to make on a motorcycle? Now, what I mean by this is just kind of like, how much leeway do you have when you're riding to be able to kind of get, kind of know what leeway means. Like, you're in a car, you're gonna have more margin, you're gonna have a larger margin of error. You can make a lot more mistakes in a car before something bad or something harmful will happen to you in the car. So I wanted to kind of discuss that margin instead on motorcycles. So basically just meaning how much risk or how many mistakes you can make before something happens. And, you crash or you lay the bike down, whatever it may be. So cars and motorcycles both have to deal with other drivers on the road. Obviously, this is a fact that we can clearly state. Cars and motorcyclists both are on the road, and they are at others' will. Not are at others' will, but they do have to account for other citizens driving on the road. Motorcycles might just a little bit more, because we're harder to see. Oftentimes people have trouble, catching up on motorcycles' movements and stuff, and so just overall they're a little bit more dangerous because they're smaller. But nonetheless, we both have to deal with the fact that there are other drivers on the road that are, that can make mistakes themselves that in turn could cause an accident on your end. But for the specifics of this video, I'm talking about like what personal errors you can make and still be okay, So the main things that really are of worry on a motorcycle are going to be your loss of traction, which can happen from many different things. Loss of traction, braking, things like that are going to cause you to tip the bike over. It can be a personal accident, in a sense, a single vehicle accident. So the rear tire slipping, you can recover from that. I've recovered from it once. That was my major accident or major close call that I had. You can recover from a rear wheel slippage as long as you're able to, I guess, counterweight the bike, and you can once the rear tire does regain traction, in order to not high side the bike or get into a different type of accident, you have to be able to control that regain of traction, because there's going to be a big hop when you regain traction in that rear wheel because of load transference and everything like that. So you have to be able to control that. But rear wheel slippage is going to be, if you slip out that rear wheel going too fast, you're probably going to lay that bike down. Most of the time, if you're lucky, that the rear wheel does slip all the way out and you lay the bike down, instead of gaining traction again and then high siding the bike, because those are usually worse accidents, higher mechanism injury. So you can't really let the rear tire slip too much, because that's going to cause you to have, you know, that's going to be kind of the main cause of accidents from what I can gather, right? Single vehicle accidents, that is. Another big one is braking, panic braking. So when you brake too hard and you grab a fistful of front brake, meaning you slam on the front brakes instead of easing into them, progressing into them, progressively applying more pressure, that's when your in this case your front tire will lock up, and you will, if that front tire loses traction, the bike's most likely going to tip over, right? That's when a lot of accidents you see people kind of they like just they brake, you know, they'll have something like a rear end collision that's about to happen, but they panic brake too hard, and that causes them to tip the bike over before they even hit the person. So that margin for error can be pretty small, because you have to, you know, it's a hard thing to stay calm and ease into a braking. You know, you have to be able to ease into braking when you're in a panic situation. You know, you have split second to make decisions, you know. So that can be tough, and it causes, you know, a lot of accidents. That's another one that will cause a lot of it will be a big factor in a lot of single vehicle accidents. You know, you see that all the time. But those are going to be the main two that you have in terms of making a mistake on your end. If you give too much throttle with enough lean angle, it's that rear wheel will slip, and you'll notice losses of traction all the time when you start riding. They're not fun. And so that's kind of what you work with on a motorcycle. You have to constantly be worrying about losses of traction and, you know, any other kind of slippage that may occur. Alright? So anyways, I know this wasn't a super detailed video or anything, but I just wanted to kind of talk about that, because there's a lot more to worry about on a motorcycle, and these are just two like big ones: rear tire traction and front tire traction in regards to panic braking, things like that. So keep this in mind when you're riding a bike. It's not a car. You can't take corners as fast as you can on four wheels with a completely different center of gravity. Okay, so that's just kind of what I wanted to get across, is that there's a lot less margin for error. You cannot make as many mistakes on a motorcycle without causing an accident eventually. And this kind of circles back to a point that I'd like to make, that smaller bikes are going to give you a bigger margin for error than you will get with bigger bikes. Okay, because this is something that, you know, on a small bike like mine, I have less margin for error, because a little bit of throttle, a little bit of accidental whiskey throttle, or whatever it may be, not actually whiskey throttle, but a little bit of extra throttle on a turn isn't necessarily going to kick out my rear wheel like it would on a 600 Super Sport. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to be going as fast, I'm not going to be accelerating as fast on this bike, so that my braking usually will be a little bit smoother. But that just, I mean, if you can ride a fast bike slowly and kind of still get a good braking distance, good stopping distance, and do your best to eliminate that panic braking on the front wheel losing traction. But these smaller bikes will give you a bigger margin of error, because I have told this time and time again to my friends, you know, talking about like sizes of bikes and stuff to my friends. I've made mistakes on this bike that probably, I'm 99% certain, would have been an accident on a bigger bike. I've made throttle mistakes, small throttle mistakes that kind of just jerk me like that on the bike, you know, like forward, just kind of like lurches and stuff like that. I've mistakenly, you know, given too much throttle on a rev matching while I'm downshifting, and even just like giving too much, like letting the clutch out too quickly, and it just jolts me forward. Things like that, and even a little bit of braking as well. Braking issues, just a little bit of, you know, a little bit too harsh on the brakes. Some of those mistakes that I made on this bike, I'm glad I was on this bike when I made, because they would have been a lot less forgiving on a 600 or a faster, bigger bike, whatever it may be, something that weighs more. So just keep these kind of things in mind when you're riding. It's not a car. There's a lot smaller margin for error. You cannot make as many mistakes on a bike. Don't think that when you're riding, otherwise you are going to very quickly get yourself into an accident. Okay, so you do need to push yourself to the limits to kind of make yourself a better rider, but do it safely and understand the risks. Loss of traction is a big one. Okay, so keep these things in mind when you're riding, guys. Hopefully this was somewhat informational, and I appreciate you tuning in. Peace out.